If you watch this whole video, you might be able to draw a correlation between why I'm in the back of my vehicle right now recording this intro. This is part 2 with Cindy Blom from EB Rooster Guitar. If you don't watch anything else from this episode, scroll to the end and watch the last 3 minutes. It's the meat and potatoes of the whole thing. It's the reason we're doing the Stigma documentary. It's the reason that we're trying to engage with an audience to talk about the fact that there's a very real situation out there where people are dying on a daily basis because of addiction. Here in this second episode with Cindy, we do start out with the fire hydrant story. Some of you have heard it, some of you haven't. I own a fire hydrant in Nashville, Tennessee. This is part 2 with Cindy Blom of EB Rooster Guitar.
That you own.
I own a fire hydrant on Blakemore Avenue, but I don't see a comparison between a fire hydrant on Blakemore Avenue and naked round road. No, yeah, But then there was a guy that was sitting there, and he just simply said, you know, for me, a couple of beers in the fridge just really pissed me off. And as soon as he said it, I was like, oh no. I had to stop comparing, and I had to start looking for the similarities. And that's what you're doing in that scenario, is you're saying that there is an obsession of the mind with you, and you're spending all night and all morning, and I'm saying that with hyperbole, but you're spending time last night and this morning worrying and fretting about where to put the camera and what, how, and this. That obsession of the mind, when you're dealing with something like drugs, and more specifically opiates, and the fact that they are chemically changing the brain in a way that alcohol never could dream of doing, you've upped the ante on that obsession to a degree that you cannot relate to. And I think that's where people get confused. And I think back to that's again why the stigmatizing views have to be dismantled. How do you enable people, and how do you love people? And how do you not enable people while you're loving people? And how do you not enable people while still loving people? And how do you love people without enabling people? This is the dialogue that goes on inside the minds of every single person I know who has someone in their life who is addicted to drugs and alcohol. How do you balance those two things? How do you live in that space where you are trying to help them, but you're helping them in the wrong ways? Or you're trying to love them, but you're loving them in the wrong ways? Cindy's got 6 years of torturous insight into this. How do you do it? Well, I don't know. But I know one part of the equation is the stigma and shame associated with it has to be eradicated, so that there's at least one step closer to being able to find wholeness and freedom, either on the side of the person who's still actively using, or for the people who are left behind after someone has tragically died from an accidental overdose.
The jury is so out on what does help look like, what does love look like. But it is our job to be investigators and to be looking for the pieces of the puzzle that are missing, not beating up a human being because they're not getting it acting right. But let's go and see what pieces are missing. That's all I'm asking people. That's not enabling. If that's enabling, I'm just calling the enabling card on anyone that has a chronic illness. I'm going, then stop. Don't ever make a meal for a diabetic. Let them make their own damn meals. Whatever it is. Then let's level the playing field on all chronic illnesses, on all diseases, on all everything. But let's turn this a little more into discovery and fact finding as to where things need to be adjusted, and stop looking at white hats and black hats and going, you morally failed. And I'm going, yeah, that sucks, and that hurt, and that set us back. And financially it set me back in such a way that I can't risk that anymore. Right. Whatever you have to do, but you don't have to be a jerk.
Right.
You can still treat someone like a valuable human being who's fighting a battle. Eric was homeless. He was totally homeless. But you know what? When it got cold, this is one funny story. It was going to be a cold night, and I couldn't stand it. Now, here, enabling. Here we go. And I'm going to go, screw you. Screw whoever's going to comment about me enabling.
Geez.
Good, screw you. I drove in my little Kia Soul, and I had the Find My Phone app on. Now, he had a phone because I wanted to know where to find him.
Right.
That phone was not, I didn't give that to him. It was a part of me. We fought about it in our family all the time. And I'm like, I want to know where my kid is.
Right.
So the family app was on, and I could always find him. And there were certain times where I'm like, okay, he's homeless here. He's homeless there. He's homeless there. He was homeless every bit of the cold, every bit of everything. So I was driving around, and all of a sudden I get a call, and Eric's like, Mom, if you're going to do surveillance, you may want to drive a Camry, not a Kia Soul. I see you driving by the place 5 or 6 times. I'm fine. Go home. And I went home. I'm like, okay, thanks. I'm fine. I'm still using. I'm not ready to come home. Just go home. And I'm like, you little shit. But you know what? I love that I have that memory. I love that I have that memory.
I love that. I think that's amazing. I think that's
and
amazing.
I'm going, is that enabling? I don't know. I have a dead kid. He's been dead for 6 years in 2 days. I am thankful that I cared enough to drive out.
Yeah.
And see if he was alive.
Yeah.
I don't judge people that don't. It's what my personal energy needed to use up.
Yeah.
And I think we have to get to the point where we're a little more open on how our thumbprints are so unique.
Yeah.
That we have to process things in a different way. He ended up with 6 sleeping bags in his van because every time it got cold, I bought a new freaking sleeping bag. He's like, Mom, how many sleeping bags do you think I need? I go, as many as it takes for me to feel better. Yeah. That's how many sleeping bags are going to be in this damn van.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. I mean, I told somebody recently, I know somebody that they are an alcoholic. They've admitted as such, but they're not done. And they're like at the phase of like, if they drink again, they will die. Mm-hmm. Like their body internally is just done.
Yeah.
And I was speaking with one of their family members, and the family member said that this person had said something to the effect of, I'm not going to quit until I'm ready to quit.
Right.
And the family member was talking to me about it and saying, I mean, I just don't know what to do with that. And I said, well, I think you build on that because that's the first time in 20 years that this family member has been honest with you. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you mean? I said, have they ever acknowledged before that they weren't going to quit until they were going to quit? No.
Right.
Then you build on that.
That's right.
Well, that's just horrible though, because they're probably going to die. No. What we're talking about right now is just the fact that they were actually able to dig down deep inside of them, the lying liar who lies, they were able to pull out an honest statement. It all comes back down to stigma and treatment, you know? The stigma associated with whether or not you can get treatment. The stigma associated with how do I get help if it means I'm going to lose my job? How do I get help if it means my society that I'm around, that I'm surrounded with, are going to look down their nose at me and see me as a degenerate? I already see it and hear it in my own head. I already hate myself. That's kind of the concept and the thought processes that go on inside of the minds of people, some people who struggle with this. They already hate themselves. The last thing they want is to remove the veneer and have you hate them for the same reasons. And the whole notion of hitting bottom is, I mean, what's the bottom look like? We started this episode with a fire hydrant being destroyed on Blakemore Avenue, and that was my fault. And you would think that a night in the drunk tank and a lot of legal troubles and the loss of a license for a while would be enough for me, but it wasn't. So what does bottom even look like? I've heard people tell me, well, with the family member dying of a drug overdose, maybe the other family members will clue in and finally get help. Yeah, I wish. But that's just not the reality by and large. So we've got to figure out how to do something to remove the stigma. And the only people that have the cards to be able to do that are the people that don't have the emotional attachment to it. Because everybody inside the rooms of recovery and everybody inside of the rooms of support groups for people who have lost someone to substance use disorder, all of those people, guess what? They already know. Here's the last 4 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever I acknowledged at the beginning. If you don't watch anything else, please watch this part.
You know, so that I spend a good portion of my time talking to family members. And, you know, I mean, and we're trying to figure out, okay, so, you know, until they hit bottom. And I know that that's a word that the recovery community uses a lot. And on the outside of that, in a different version of recovery, I also have to believe that it is our job in life to raise the bottom for every human there is. Now, what does that look like? And I think when you take away messages that are lies about who they are as a being, what their value is in life, and that's the shame and the stigma. And I'm going, so shaming somebody into sobriety, it doesn't really work very well. No. When you're looking at somebody who basically has no prefrontal cortex, I tell family members, I'm like, so Granny has a stroke. She gets out of NHC rehab, and you send her home and you tell her you're going to 90 meetings in 90 days. You're going to get your own car. You're going to do a job interview. You're going to do all of that. And here you go, do it successfully and don't fuck up.
Right.
And I'm like, we have to understand that that's not, we have to desire those things, but we also have to look at a longer view of where success lands. Right. So I would tell family members, if you're looking at that and you're looking at a relapse, I believe that a relapse just gives us more information. And when we have a relapse, we get to look at a failed treatment plan. Not a failed human being, but a failed treatment plan. When I say a care plan or a treatment plan, I'm saying also just doing the crap that's not fun, which is sometimes you end up in jail, but it's a complex thing. But let's evaluate, what's the support system? Do we have enough people around? Do we have this? Did we identify the trauma? When Big Pharma pays out big money to states, I'm like, could I really look at who's on the board deciding how I want to know who's deciding how the money gets spent, and I want to know what gave you the skin in the game.
Yeah.
That allows you to make a good decision on this.
Right.
Because I'm not sure that the people sitting around the table have had the life experience that puts enough skin in the game.
Right.
Sometimes it's people who aren't going to make money off of it. And I'm going, great, I get it. It's expensive to do rehab. I get it. But if you're doing 30 to 90 days in rehab, you better allow the family to have enough resources to fill out the next 2 years for their brain to come back online. And if you used all of their resources up for 90 days, shame on you.
Right.
So that's why I like Second Chance Sober Living. That's why I like places like that. I'm like, if we can figure out how to string those days longer, rebuild trust, rebuild life, put people around, you have to have that. You have to have that.
Yeah.
Or they're not going to succeed. Do you have enough courage to look hope in the face and think that the worst nightmares that run around in your head aren't going to kill you? Because as many times as he's shooting up, he was also fighting against the hope and against the thing that was going to kill him. Both things are as dangerous to him.
Yeah.
Because if he just hangs on to hope and it crushes him, because he finds out that he either fails or that, you know, I mean, his other big quote is, Mom, you know what, with my story, I can pastor a large church.
Yeah.
But I can't be trusted to work in the garden department at Home Depot.
That's right.
And I'm going, that's the stigma.
That's
See,
right.
that's my thing. Now, I understand it's risky to hire people in active addiction. I get it.
Yeah.
But we have to encourage other business owners to risk that and to say, you know what, how do you hire someone who's in the beginning stages of recovery? Do we have that kind of stamina?
Right.
Now that we've got COVID and we're re-looking at things, do we have the way that we can put them in a place where they're not only with other people who can't get jobs because of their record?
I want to get to a point where people don't have to lose someone to come to the awareness that people like you and Megan and my family and so many others have experienced. I'd like people to be able to come to this knowledge without having the experience that you've had.
Mm-hmm.
That's
right. Exactly.
essentially where I'd like to go as a society, and to get to a place where we don't have to add another name to the list.
Every year since Eric's passed, Dan has taken the Music City Marathon photo of the race at the beginning. And every time he takes that photo and he goes, that's how many people died of overdose. And this is the first year that he hasn't been able to do that. But it's this, or he'll look at the Super Bowl and look at the number and go, that's how many, that's how many. Because just to create a visual awareness, because most people don't, they have no perspective. And you know what, Skip, I don't want them to.
Well, there's another episode, Sober Social Distancing. Maybe now you know why I'm in the back of my vehicle. Maybe you don't. Maybe you didn't put it together. The fact of the matter is, we're all connected. And connection is, as David Hampton taught us several weeks ago, one of the legs on the four-legged stool. Shame, anxiety, trauma, connection. Stigma is associated in all four. Stigma is absolutely part of the equation when it comes to finding recovery from addiction. We're not saying it's the only one. Nobody ever said it was the only one. But it's a part of the equation. If we can move the ball down the field ever so slightly, we might be able to save some lives. We might be able to find some more hope. We might be able to see that spark return. See you next week.